Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am thrilled to finally be sharing my 30 new leopard gecko enclosures that I've been working on preparing, buying, saving for, all that stuff since January of this year. And this year is 2020. If you're watching this from the future in 2021, I really hope that it's a better experience than this year has been. Let me know if you're in the future. Is 2021 any better? I really just would like it to be. I do ask then, instead of just skipping ahead to see the enclosures, you watch this intro because there's going to be a few disclaimers. First of all, I paid for these enclosures. I bought all of them and they are by All American Cages. I will leave a link below to their website, and I will also be reviewing their enclosures in a separate video. This video is really just going to be me doing a brief show off of each enclosure and feeding the leopard geckos. The reason for that is because the big reveal video is taking way longer to put together and finish than I intended, because there's so much to go over and so much to say. So much so that in fact I split it into 4 videos. So there's actually going to be one that is an in-depth look at each enclosure and a review of the brand of enclosures that I went with. There's also going to be a video talking about the decor that I chose to use in the enclosures, how I heat these enclosures, and also how much they cost, because I think that that's something that a lot of people don't talk about when keeping reptiles, is how expensive things can be. So I broke it down into 4 videos and you'll see those very soon. But I really am so eager to share what the enclosures look like, so I figured I will record a video of my leopard geckos eating hornworms in their new enclosures. So what you're gonna see is a brief look at each gecko's enclosure before I feed them, and I'll start with the larger enclosures, of which there are 14, 36 by 18 by 12 inch enclosures, and then I'll move on to the 9, 24 by 18 by 12 enclosures, and then I'll finish with the 8, 18 by 18 by 12 enclosures. Keep in mind that I keep a lot of special needs leopard geckos, a lot of geckos with neurological problems, bone defects, all kinds of stuff. And so I have to cater to each individual leopard gecko. I couldn't just have all the enclosures be the same size with the same decor. Some have substrate, some don't. Some are in bigger enclosures, some are in smaller enclosures. For my geckos, it's not a one size fits all, so I hope you take that into consideration when you see that each gecko has a little bit of a different situation going on. Another disclaimer I'd like to put out there is that the food that the leopard geckos are eating in this video are called hornworms. They are completely safe for leopard geckos to eat, but I want to say that this video is not representative of a full diet for a leopard gecko. You should not just feed them hornworms. I do ask that if you have any questions about the heating, the decoration, the enclosures, anything like that, that you wait until I do post those longer videos. They will be coming soon because these enclosures are completely finished at this point. It took a whole month, way longer than I thought it was going to take, but there was a lot of problems I ran into, such as running out of decor 4 times. Very expensive. But I will be going into so much more depth and detail in those videos, so I would appreciate if you could just hold all your questions about the enclosures until those videos. Like I said, they'll be out soon, so you won't have to wait very long. I think that's all the disclaimers I have to give you. Without further ado, please enjoy my new leopard gecko enclosures and my leopard geckos eating hornworms in them. This is Brienne. She is in a 36 by 18 by 12. She's at the very top tier of the girl enclosures, which are between my closet door and the door to the pet room. And here she is enjoying her hornworm. Here's Renly. She is also in a 36 by 18 by 12 enclosure, and she is the second from the top in the tier of the girl enclosures, and here she is eating her hornworm. This is Marcella. She is my only enigma and only neurologically afflicted gecko that has substrate. She's in a 36 by 18 by 12 enclosure like the other girls you just saw, Brienne and Renly, and she is third from the top in the girl tier of enclosures. She's the first gecko you're seeing that has a bit of a arid theme, and there's a couple different themes throughout the enclosures that you'll notice, but I just thought arid would go really well with her, and so far it has. And of course, here she is eating her hornworm. Here is Amy. She also has a little bit of an arid design, and she's in a 36 by 18 by 12. She is fourth from the top in the girl tier, and she also likes to poop right at the top of her driftwood. So I left it there so you guys could see it, and then I cleaned it up. But here she is eating her hornworm. This is Aria, and she is fifth from the top in the girl tier. She's in a 36 by 18 by 12, and she is actually the smallest of these geckos to get this upgrade because she's so active. Here she is eating her hornworm. This is Tormund, and Tormund is the only one of the girls who doesn't have substrate. I tried substrate with her, it didn't work out unfortunately. As you can see, she's over here on her humid hide. She's in a 36 by 18 by 12, and she's on the very bottom of the girl tier, and that is because of her neurological condition. It's easier to feed her when she's closer to the ground, plus I don't have to run the risk of her jumping out and hurting herself. This is Merlin. He is in the bottom of the boys tier. The boys tier of 36 by 18 by 12 enclosures is in between the windows in my pet room. He's very happy to have additional space and substrate because he's a wild boy, and that is why he's on bottom. And here he is eating his hornworm. This is Benjamin, and he is second from the bottom. The reason for that is because he's also a little bit of a wild child. However, he cannot have substrate because he continually gets it caught in his underbite, which is unfortunate. But he does love hornworms, and he's very happy about the additional space either way. This is Jojen's enclosure. Jojen also doesn't have substrate because of his neurological condition. We tried it out with him, but it didn't work out. He does, however, have kitchen cabinet liner like Tormund and like Tywin, who you'll see in a minute. And here he is enjoying his hornworm, well, trying to anyway. He does have white and yellow syndrome, so it can be kind of a challenge. But eventually, he gets it. And he is also in a 36 by 18 by 12, like Benjamin and Merlin. Here is Viserion. He's in a 36 by 18 by 12, 4 from the bottom. He has kind of an arid setup, and also he's a very big fan of this new enclosure. He's so active in this enclosure. It's a great change in his behavior. Not that he wasn't active before, but it's really nice to see it. And also, here's him eating a hornworm. Here is Tywin's enclosure. He's in a 36 by 18 by 12, and he is fifth from the bottom. He is my biggest leopard gecko, so I think he needed the upgrade the most. However, he is in shed in this clip, so he does just look a little bit blurry, a little bit cloudy. Due to having reproductive health issues for like half of the year, I decided not to give him substrate, but he does have a dig box. At the top of the boys tier is Varys, whose enclosure is set up much like Brienne's, and he's, as you can see, creeping out from the middle there. He is in a 36 by 18 by 12 as well, and I have 2 more 36 by 18 by 12s after this, but they're not in either of the girl or boy tiers. And here's Varys eating a hornworm. The gecko who has surprised me the most is Fritz. He's never really been very active or very outgoing, but man, in this new enclosure has his behavior completely changed. He runs out to see me. It's incredible. He's under 36 by 18 by 12, and he has substrate. He's not in a tier with the boys or the girls, but he's on top of the main wall of enclosures, and to his right is another gecko that has a 36 by 18 by 12, and his name is Vash, who you'll see in a second. This is my fiance's gecko Vash, but because I take care of him, he's basically mine. So of course he got an upgrade with the rest of them. He's in a 36 by 18 by 12, and his is a bit more of an arid setup as well. He is to the right of Fritz's enclosure, and he is on the top right of the giant wall of enclosure. Here he is in the back left corner, which is his absolute favorite, and here he is eating a hornworm, which also happens to be his favorite. now we're going to start taking a look at the 24 by 18 by 12 enclosures. This one belongs to Karsi, my West Indian leopard gecko. She's a little bit more shy, so I wanted to offer a lot of ground coverage instead of a lot of hanging plants. And here she is, eating a hornworm. Up next is Tyrion, my Eublepharus macellarius afghanicus. He's in his humid hide in this shot, but you'll see him in a second enjoying a hornworm. And also, I included a clip of him digging like crazy. Oh my god, it is so cute. So here's the clip of him digging. It is sped up a bit because it was a rather long clip, but you can see he flings dirt. I mean, he absolutely loves having substrate, so I'm really glad I decided to give it to him. And this is Alisanne's 24 by 18 by 12 enclosure. It's a little bit hard to see, but next time you guys see it in the full length video, it'll have better lighting. So don't worry, I'll give you a better look in the future, I promise. And here's Alisanne eating a hornworm. This is my gecko Canvara's enclosure. It's a 24 by 18 by 12, and she has white and yellow syndrome, so she's not able to have substrate. However, she's doing great on kitchen cabinet liner. And here she is, eating a hornworm. This is my gecko Theon's enclosure. He has white and yellow syndrome as well, so he doesn't have substrate. He's also not done growing, so if he looks a little small, that's why. This is his 24 by 18 by 12 enclosure, and here he is, eating a hornworm. This is Elia. She is my gecko that had MBD, and obviously you can still see the effects of it. She's in a 24 by 18 by 12 with kitchen cabinet liner because having substrate was actually making it harder for her to use her back legs, so obviously I removed it because that's what's in her best interest. And here she is, eating a hornworm. This is Mira. She's a gecko that has impaired vision and stunted growth, but she actually does really well with substrate and the space she was given in a 24 by 18 by 12. And here she is, eating a hornworm. This is Egret. She lives in a 24 by 18 by 12 with substrate. She's also absolutely insane, so that is why she's hanging out of her enclosure right now. This is Liana, and much like Egret, she's crazy, so she just hangs out of her door. She's in a 24 by 18 by 12, and she has substrate. And here she is, eating a hornworm. And now we are on our 18 by 18 by 12 enclosures, which feature stunted growth or vision impaired or enigmas, which have neurological disorders. And Roz here is one of those geckos that has a neuro disorder. It's kind of hard to see her enclosure, so I do apologize. For some reason it just didn't show up well, but again, I'll give you a better look in the other videos. This is my Enigma Syndrome gecko Sam. She has an 18 by 18 by 12, which is a small enclosure, but it's necessary because she has a neurological condition called Enigma Syndrome, like I said. And it causes her to move differently and eat differently. And so my enigmas just thrive better in smaller enclosures. It's also why she doesn't have substrate. You can kind of see a little bit of her movements that are just not normal when she eats, and it's even more evident in Gilly, her sister, and in Melisandre, who's another enigma that I have that I'll be showing towards the end of the video. This is Marjorie. She's not an enigma, but she does have a neurological condition. She also has stunted growth, and so for that reason I gave her a smaller space that was pretty enriching so she could easily interact with her environment and not become too overwhelmed in a large enclosure. She also doesn't have substrate because for whatever reason she can't seem to keep it out of her eyeballs, so she only has a little dig box. And here she is, enjoying a hornworm. This is Rego. Rego has stunted growth, pretty much total blindness, and he also has cleft nostrils, and for that reason I didn't give him substrate, and I'm keeping him in an 18 by 18 by 12. Like Marjorie's, I still have it pretty well decorated because he doesn't have as much struggle with a well-decorated enclosure as like the enigmas would. And here he is, eating a hornworm. This is Gilly. She's a sister to Sam, and she has Enigma syndrome, which is why she's in a kind of plainly decorated 18 by 18 by 12 enclosure with no substrate. Sam and Gilly are actually housed side by side, which you'll see here in a minute. This one is Gilly, and then I'm going to pan over to Sam. That's her sister who's currently circling, which is a symptom of Enigma syndrome. And here's Gilly eating her hornworm, which she is very fond of. And here is Melisandre, who has the worst Enigma syndrome in the house at the moment. It definitely gets worse every time she ovulates. In the past 2 years, she's been ovulating and egg laying, so her Enigma syndrome has just gotten worse and worse. As you can see here, when she eats her food, it's actually a huge struggle for her to be able to catch on to it, and then once she does, she thrashes around pretty violently, and this is all due to her neurological condition, which is called Enigma syndrome, and it is just because of her morph. It's really sad. I'm hoping that the further away we get from ovulation season this year, that the better she'll be and the less her symptoms will be present, but only time will tell. Unfortunately, it's just a waiting game. And last but certainly not least is my Enigma Edard, who fares the best simply because he's a boy and doesn't have to go through ovulation season. Nonetheless, he is in an 18 by 18 by 12 with no substrate because Enigma syndrome never goes away. And here he is enjoying a hornworm. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of my new leopard gecko enclosures. I hope you enjoyed seeing them eat hornworms, because I always do. And I hope you enjoyed seeing a couple new faces, including Tyrion's, for example. I've shared Kinvara and Alisanne on here in I think I've shared a picture of Tyrion too, but you haven't really gotten to meet them yet formally. That'll be coming soon, but I do hope you enjoyed seeing them, as well as all the familiar faces. Of course, we are missing Shireen's face. She would have been housed in these new enclosures, but she passed away from a liver tumor. Really terrible. I miss her. I'm hopeful that down the road I'll be able to use the space that was for her for another gecko with Enigma syndrome. That space is currently being occupied by an African fat-tailed baby named Jamie, and eventually as Jamie grows he'll have a bigger enclosure, but for the time being Jamie's nice and comfy there. But I do hope that one day that in Shireen's memory I can use her space for another Enigma or another gecko that has a neurological problem like she did. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. Also, check out social media. I post there more often than YouTube, so if you have been missing me because I've been so busy, I do post on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, all that stuff. If you want early access to videos, Patreon's the place to go. I will see you guys soon with those 4 videos I mentioned about these enclosures, as well as others. Bye.